At this time, I would like to introduce Mr. Gordon Felt, President of the Families of Flight 93. This organization and this very, very special group of individuals are an integral part of the stewardship of Flight 93 National Memorial. On September 11th, 2001, Gordon's eldest brother, Edward P. Felt, was killed aboard Flight 93 as the passengers and crew members fought to retake control of that airplane. Since those early days, as our country struggled to make sense of the loss of thousands of our citizens, Gordon has served as the spokesman for the families of Flight 93. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. Gordon Felt.
Mr. President, Mrs. Trump, Governor Wolf, Governor Schweiker, Secretary Zinke, Senator and Mrs. Casey, Congressman Schuster, Rothfuss, and Barletta, Captain and crew of the USS Somerset, distinguished guests, those that serve our nation through their work with the National Park Service, National Park Foundation, Flight 93 National Memorial Ambassadors, friends of Flight 93, visitors, and dearest to my heart, families of Flight 93. I welcome you to our annual service to honor the 40 extraordinary heroes of United Flight 93. 17 years ago, I and scores of other family members that had experienced the tragic loss of a loved one on September 11th, 2001, were loaded onto buses and escorted along country roads lined with first responders saluting at attention, and families with children waving flags, hands over their hearts as a gesture of respect for those that we family members lost in what has been referred to as that first battle fought against this current brand of terrorism on American soil. Our destination was a site just behind us on the Western Overlook. At that moment, when we first looked out over a field torn asunder, smelling of jet fuel, burned and gravely wounded, we and our country were grievously injured, hurting, angry, devastated, confused, and cast adrift into a world that offered only uncertainty, violence, and fear. Little did we know in that moment that the choices our loved ones made during the final 35 excruciatingly terrifying minutes of their lives, as well as the actions being taken on the ground in New York City and at the Pentagon, little did we know that they would serve to inspire a nation and reaffirm a standard of exceptionalism inherent in those that understand the unrelenting nature of freedom-loving peoples. This memorial is dedicated to preserving the stories of the 40 heroes of Flight 93 and their collective actions. Our newly dedicated Tower of Voices stands at the entrance of this great memorial, defiantly, reminding us of how 40 strangers came together, planned, prayed, voted, and chose to fight, foiling one prong of a terrorist attack against our country 5 years in the making. They were not passive. They did not sit back and let events unfold before them. They did not cower. Because of their actions, further loss of life was averted, and the preeminent symbol of our democracy was preserved. This Flight 93 National Memorial was designed to not only honor their memory and enshrine the history of September 11th, 2001 for future generations, but to also inspire those that take time to bear witness to their sacrifice. 35 minutes, a fraction of an hour, a lifetime to our loved ones. 35 minutes, during which a choice was made. The course of history was changed, and a more devastating impact of the terrorist attack against our country was averted. I'm often asked what, if anything, can we learn from the events of September 11th? It's a complex question, and one that could provoke hour upon hour of discussion, leading to many tangential responses. However, I firmly believe that the heroes of Flight 93 set a standard, reminding us what we instinctually know to be true, but all too often neglect to realize. The diverse individuals aboard Flight 93, the morning of September 11th, 2001, could easily have been any one of us. They ranged in age, from the unborn to those enjoying retirement, from varying backgrounds, professions, ethnicities, countries, and religions, whose diversity clearly added significant value to the choice that they made. When faced with a challenge that hopefully far exceeds anything that most of us will ever have to face, they were able to come together in mere minutes, not as 40 individuals, but rather as one unified force. They chose to stand together and fight as a single, united group. In their case, it was a hastily planned attack to retake control of a plane. On the ground in New York and at the Pentagon, it was a choice to run into buildings, or if already there, to assist others from fiery infernos on the verge of collapse. How do we honor these heroes? How do we help keep their memory alive so that they can continue to motivate us and impact the course of our history? The answer, as I've been trying to articulate for years, is by choosing to do so. We have to choose to actively remember. There should never be a time when we willingly sit back and opt to remain idle when evil threatens our freedom. We have to choose to be inspired by the collaborative actions of our heroes. And most importantly, choose to rise up and be better, as our loved ones did in their final moments. They deserve no less. And we, as freedom-loving people, can afford no less. For if we choose to forget the lessons learned on September 11th, 2001, through neglect, apathy, or distraction, we will become less honorable, less heroic, and less free. Thank you.
Thank you, Gordy. I'm truly honored to call you my friend. Now I would like to introduce the United States Secretary of the Interior, Ryan Zinke. Secretary Zinke was sworn in as the 52nd Secretary of Interior in March of 2017. He leads an agency with more than 70,000 employees who are stewards of many of our public lands, including wildlife refuges, national parks, national memorials, such as this one. A tremendous individual and truly a steward of our public lands. At this time, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the United States Secretary of the Interior, Mr. Ryan Zinke.
It's been 17 years now since September 11th, 2001. And most of us remember where we are and where we were on 9/11. For me, I was a Navy SEAL instructor. I recall looking in the eyes of the young SEAL candidates and knowing at that time their lives would change forever. The last lines of our national anthem tell us that America is the home of the brave. And on that day, courageous patriots exemplified that bravery in the aisles of Flight 93. Though it's been 17 years, the pain of their passing remains. I visited this site last year with Vice President Pence and was honored to share the sound of the first chime with the families. Our great park system tells stories. The stories of our conservation ethic, of the great epic parks of the West, to our battlefields, our civil rights monuments, our women's rights sites, and this Flight 93 memorial that we're honored to be at today. It truly is a story of heroes, a story of tragedy, and most importantly, a story of our shared values of America as self-sacrifice, duty, and honor. It's also a story that reminds us that the fight for freedom never ends. It has to be earned every day. The crew and passengers of Flight 93 gave their lives for this great nation, and their sacrifice shall never be forgotten, neither here in the fields of the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania or across our great nation. And it's in their name, in the name of all those who gave their lives for our country, that we never forget this tragedy and remain vigilant against those that wish to destroy our values and our nation. Today, as a combat veteran, it's my distinct privilege and honor to be here with the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, and his beautiful First Lady, Melania. And I would like to thank Donald Trump, President Donald Trump, for his leadership on national security, his support of law enforcement, first responders, and his unwavering support of protecting our borders. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome our President, Donald J. Trump.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ryan. So beautiful. We're gathered together on these hallowed grounds to honor the memory of nearly 3,000 souls who were murdered on this day 17 years ago. We're here to pay solemn tribute to the 40 passengers and crew members on Flight 93 who rose up, defied the enemy, took control of their destiny, and changed the course of history. Today we mourn their loss, we share their story, and we commemorate their incredible valor. On September 11th, 2001, a band of brave patriots turned the tide on our nation's enemies and joined the immortal ranks of American heroes. At this memorial on this sacred earth, in the field beyond this wall, and in the skies above our heads, we remember the moment when America fought back. Melania and I are grateful to be joined for today's ceremony by Governor Tom Wolf and Governor Mark Schweiker. I also want to thank the members of Congress in attendance, Senator Bob Casey, Congressman Lou Barletta, Keith Rothfuss, Bill Schuster, and along with the president of the families of Flight 93, Gordon Felt. We're also joined by members of the National Park Service, along with firefighters, first responders, and incredible people from law enforcement. These are truly great people. Some of you here today answered the call and raced to this field 17 years ago. You fill our hearts with pride, and I want to thank you on behalf of our country. Thank you very much. Most importantly, to the family members of Flight 93. Today, all of America wraps up and joins together. We close our arms to help you shoulder your pain and to carry your great, great sorrow. Your tears are not shed alone, for they are shared grief with an entire nation. We grieve together for every mother and father, sister and brother, son and daughter who was stolen from us at the Twin Towers, the Pentagon, and here in this Pennsylvania field. We honor their sacrifice by pledging to never flinch in the face of evil and to do whatever it takes to keep America safe. "17 years ago, your loved ones were among the 40 of Flight 93, the 40 passengers and crew members on board the 8 a.m. United Airlines flight from Newark to San Francisco. They were men and women from every background. They were young people returning from visiting family, moms and dads on business trips, and friends going and coming from birthdays and weddings. They boarded the plane as strangers, and they entered eternity linked forever as true heroes. Soon after takeoff, Flight 93 was hijacked by evil men bent on terror and conquest. Passengers and crew members began using their phones to call home. They learned that 2 planes had already crashed into the World Trade Center in New York City. Immediately, those on board Flight 93 started planning a response. Sandy Bradshaw, a flight attendant, called her husband and told him they were in the back of the plane preparing hot water to throw onto the hijackers. Passenger Jeremy Glick explained the plan to his wife and said, "Stay on the line, I'll be back." The passengers and crew members came together, took a vote, and they decided to act. At that moment, they took their fate and America's fate back into their own hands. In the last 20 minutes, many placed their final calls home, whispering those eternal words, "I love you." Some said the Lord's Prayer, and then they bravely charged the cockpit. They attacked the enemy. They fought until the very end, and they stopped the forces of terror and defeated this wicked, horrible, evil plan Flight 93 crashed yards from where we stand, just 20 minutes flying time from the United States Capitol. Through their sacrifice, the 40 saved the lives of countless Americans, and they saved our capital from a devastating strike. In the days after the attack, tens of thousands of firefighters, police officers, and recovery workers traveled to New York and Arlington to crawl through the rubble and search for survivors. There were prayer vigils, memorials, and charity drives all across our nation. Here in Shanksville, many of you raised up the first memorial, a wooden cross, a chain-linked fence, mementos and tributes pouring in, and dozens of American flags. A piece of America's heart is buried on these grounds, but in its place has grown a new resolve to live our lives with the same grace and courage as the heroes of Flight 93. This field is now a monument to American defiance. This memorial is now a message to the world. America will never, ever submit to tyranny. Since September 11th, nearly 5.5 million young Americans have enlisted in the United States Armed Forces. Nearly 7,000 service members have died facing down the menace of radical Islamic terrorism. Today, we also think of the more than 200,000 service members now serving overseas. And we think of every citizen who protects our nation at home, including our state, local, and federal law enforcement. These are great Americans. These are great heroes. We honor and thank them all. As Commander-in-Chief, I will always do everything in my power to prevent terrorists from striking American soil. Here with us today is Dorothy Garcia Blockler. Her husband, Sonny, was one of the passengers on Flight 93. On September 11th, 2001, just over a month after their 32nd wedding anniversary, Sonny was on his way back from a business meeting. He called Dorothy, who he loved so much, called her on the plane and uttered her name before the line went dead silent. In the days after the attack, Dorothy told the investigators there was only one thing she wanted from this field: her husband's wedding ring. They would know it by the inscription etched inside. "All my love," it said, followed by the number 8269, the date of their anniversary. The officers, great people, promised to try, but in this field of records, it seemed certainly impossible. Dorothy began to pray, and she asked her friends to do the same. Days went by, then months. Still no ring. A week before Christmas, on December 19th, she heard a knock at the door. Two officers were standing with a really beautiful, to her, she saw it was so beautiful, she knew what was happening. a beautiful small white box. Inside it was a wallet, a luggage tag, a driver's license, a small bag with the wedding ring inscribed with those 3 precious words, "All my love." Those words echo across this field. And those words tell the story of 40 men and women who gave all their love for their families, their country, and our freedom. To Dorothy and to every family here today, America will never forget what your loved ones did for all of us. Earlier this week, you dedicated the final part of this memorial, the Tower of Voices. Standing at 93 feet tall, the Tower of Voices is now the first structure visitors see when they come to this now sacred ground. It will hold 40 beautiful chimes that ring throughout these fields, each a unique note, but all in perfect harmony. Each time we hear those chimes playing in the wind, we will remember the 40. We will remember their faces, their voices, their stories, their courage, and their love. And we will remember that free people are never at the mercy of evil, because our destiny is always in our hands. America's future is not written by our enemies. America's future is written by our heroes. As long as this monument stands, as long as this memorial endures, brave patriots will rise up in America's hours of need, and they too will fight back. "17 years ago, 40 incredible men and women showed the whole world that no force on earth will ever conquer the American spirit. We treasure their memory, we cherish their legacy, and we ask God to forever bless the immortal heroes of Flight 93. Thank you, God bless you, God bless the families, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Thank you. Thank you very much.